check, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime and column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so goddamn always?
Hey.
And with a straight face, you're going to tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. So 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom.
All right.
And yeah, you, sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. And one of them is, there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real.
Hello,
and defense
everybody.
spending, where we spend
Just
more
getting
than the
started,
next
trying to
26
do a new
countries
format
combined, 25
tonight.
of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault of a 20-year-old college student, but you nonetheless are, without a doubt, a member of the worst generation ever, So when you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yosemite? Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed
This is normally at the
laws,
end,
struck
but I'm
down
doing
laws
this
for
one
moral
at the
reasons.
beginning.
We waged wars on poverty, not poor people.
So just hang on as I'm getting started and more people are coming
We cared
in.
about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest. We built great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached for the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy. We were able to be all these things and do all these things because we were informed by great men who were revered. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore.
All right, if you're on IG, thanks for joining everybody. If you're on IG, if you can hear that, if you were able to hear the newsroom intro, please let me know in the comments. I'm not sure. I have a new setup today. Broadcasting on Instagram and on TikTok and on YouTube. So really cool. So bear with me a little bit for today as I'm figuring out this system. I don't know if those of you that are on IG, if you can hear me, please let me know in the comments. And of course, TikTok, you're starting to get more and more people in here. But let's get started here in a minute. And I want to make sure I invite a lot of guests today. If possible, this is more of a discussion. This is about the magic formula for a full political reset. So if you want to know the formula, you can see it right there on the screen, except if you're on IG. But if you're on TikTok, you can certainly see it. And that's the point. So let me get back. I need to get TikTok open. Looks like I'm having a problem with my TikTok studio. There we go. Okay, so thanks for everybody for hopefully you stay around and hang out a little bit. And if you want to join, please hit the request button to join. Awesome. Thanks. So Cookie on IG, you can hear it and you're able to hear me and you're able to hear the opening. So that's awesome. It's the first time live streaming to Instagram. So welcome to those of you on Instagram. That's really cool. I'm able to go all 3 now with the current setup that I have. So it's really nice. Unfortunately on IG, I can't put up some of the things that I can put up on YT and TikTok in terms of prompts. So you can't see the prompt. So I'm going to read the prompt to you. The prompt today in today's live is, would you want a full reset of our political system? And what is the magic formula? So when I say a political reset, what does that mean? It's like change the Constitution or, dramatically change the Constitution? No. It doesn't really mean anything other than how do you get rid of the current people, the career politicians in our government? How do you prevent them from being corrupted by money? And how do you make sure that people who go to serve in office have to do it temporarily? That's what it means. So if you're someone who believes that our entire political system is corrupted to the core, meaning our representatives don't represent us, they represent corporate special interests, they represent unions, they represent foreign governments, foreign agents, lobbyists, billionaires, NGOs, on and on. That's what it means. We all know that the current state of American democracy is that our representatives, and I think that's what people are pissed off about. That's what everybody's pissed off about, is it's not about immigration. It's not about affordability. It's maybe a little bit about the rule of law and other things. But at the end of the day, and it's not about hating each other. It's not about all Americans hating each other, red or blue. It's sort of fictional. It's on the online world. It's on this world right here where it's fiction, where red hates blue and blue hates red. But that's not what we're really pissed off about. What we're really pissed off about is that our politicians, our government, both parties don't represent us. They don't act in the best interest of all of society. That's the issue, right? Isn't that what we're ultimately, if you say, no, that's not it, I suggest you might be a little delusional and just go deeper. Why are we so disenfranchised about our politics? Why are we so angry when we get on social media and you see people debating Trump voters? You see Trump people on the right debating Democrats, and it's all sort of this fictional fantasy world that only exists for the most part online. We are constantly being bombarded and manipulated online. Every video you watch, anything to do with politics, it's almost always red versus blue, blue versus red. I hate Trump. I hate the liberals, whatever it might be. But that's not what we're really all pissed off about. What we're really pissed off about is this, that our government has gotten away from us. And by the founding fathers' standards, when government is not for the people, by the people, you actually have, and I don't know if it's the best word, if someone has a better word for me in the comments, let me know. What you actually have is an illegitimate government in terms of representative democracy, because if our representatives are not representing the people and they're representing all types of other interests, what we actually have is an illegitimate government. And it's our responsibility as the people. The people are supposed to be the ultimate supreme leaders in a representative democracy and in a constitutional republic. That's what we're supposed to be. And we have a responsibility, meaning all Americans on the right and the left, to understand what the root cause is, what is truly the cancer that's corrupting our political system and preventing our representatives from representing us. And it's greed. It's all the big money from all the different forces that are buying our political system. And that even means the court system, right? And ultimately, that's what we're mad about. Deep down, that's what we're angry about. We're angry that we're supposed to have a representative democracy. It's not functioning as one. And it's been, as someone said, America, wake up now. Thanks for joining, by the way. I don't know if I'm going to say that word, but peace-stituted. I can't say the word just in case I get banned on any particular network, whether it's TikTok or IG or whatever. So it's been perverted. Let's go with that. Our representative democracy has been fully perverted, and it no longer represents us. And that's what we're angry about. Deep down, that's what we're angry about. So there's only 3 things that need to happen. There's a magic formula, And people think it's impossible, it's too late, it can't happen. It's not true. It can absolutely happen. And that magic formula is three things. The first one is a 28th Amendment. I'm going to pop that up on the screen actually, I don't think I have it. I thought I had it on TikTok. All right, but the first one is a 28th Amendment. So there are 27 amendments right now. 17 have been added after the Constitution. So if you remember, there were constitutional, social studies in 7th or 8th grade or wherever you went to school, whatever grade it was in, is that you had the Constitution that was ratified with the first 10 Bill of Rights, which were the first 10 amendments. And then since then, there have been 17 additional amendments for a total of 27 amendments. And the last one was in 1992. Now, people say it's impossible. You can't do amendments because it requires 3/4 of the states to ratify it. That's a lot. You got to get 3/4 of the states to ratify a constitutional amendment. And first, you have to have it proposed. It has to be proposed. And that has to come from either 2/3 of the state legislatures or from 2/3 of Congress. So people say it won't happen, it can't happen. That's also BS. It can happen. It just requires populism, enough people to come together. People think you have to have tons of money to make this happen. No, you don't have to have tons of money. You just have to have tons of awareness. You have to have 50 million people that have awareness and that want to support a 28th Amendment and a 29th Amendment, but I'm starting on the 28th. You have to have 2 amendments. These 2 amendments would change everything, virtually everything over time. But you have to have the 28th Amendment. You have to have 50 million people that support it. People say that's a lot of people. How do you get the word out? How did Mamdani get the word out in New York? He hit the pavement. He was on social media. He had great messaging. How did Trump become something? He actually did the same thing, but for some people it was hope. For a lot of us it was hate. But he also was just a blowhole, and he ended up becoming relevant. That's the word. You have to have relevancy. You have to have enough awareness. That's what's important. How did Obama come from a junior senator out of Illinois in order to become the president? He sold a message, and that message resonated. So whether you're utilizing your message for hate, like Trump did, but for Trump voters, make no mistake about it, he also was hopeful for those people. He spread a message of hope. Believe it or not, those of you that are blue or independents, you may not see anything hopeful in about what Trump did, but to his base, he had a hopeful message. I know immigration, getting rid of immigration, but that to those people, that was hopeful. To close the borders, that was hopeful. So make no mistake about it, politics is only about 2 things, hate and hope. It's one or the other. And Trump did both. Obama was more about hope, and Mamdani was also about hope. So make sure you're aware that people think it's impossible. It's not. It just takes enough people to come together under a message. And that's the message I'm trying to spread. And if you haven't seen my lives about JFK Jr. and his fatal crash in 1999, if you don't remember JFK Jr., you should watch one of my lives. I'm going to do another live on JFK Jr. and how his death changed the world forever. In July 16th, 1999, when he crashed his plane, his Piper Saratoga, into the Long Island Sound on his way to Martha's Vineyard. That day changed history for all of us and continues to change history to this very day. Everything that has happened since his death, whether it was the rise of Hillary Clinton or of Obama or of Trump, is all because of his passing. All of it. So if you haven't seen that yet, I would encourage you to keep watching these lives. I'm going to do another JFK live here soon with a better story than I've done in the past, a more detailed story. It's such a wonderful story. And when you understand the ripple effects of his passing, you understand why we are in the situation we are today. If he would have lived, none of the amount of division would have existed. The Tea Party would have never formed. Trump would have never become a political figure, because he only became a political figure because of birtherism and saying that Obama wasn't a natural-born American. So it's really important to realize that messaging, and going back to the main point of that, is JFK Jr.'s main mission in future politics when he was 38, when he passed away, and his mission was going to politics was going to be campaign finance reform. This is even back in 1999. He knew full well that the amount of money that was corrupting the system, that was even before Citizens United. Citizens United was just the last nail in the coffin. The degradation of campaign finance restrictions started in 1974 with Buckley versus Valeo. That ruling allowed corporations to have free speech, and money was speech, and it opened up the doorways to artificial entities having rights, having free speech rights in our Constitution. So this is a video I have coming up soon about, we have a government that's supposed to be for the people, by the people, and we all know people just means individual human beings, but that's not what the courts determined. The courts determined that artificial entities could have personhood, and personhood has rights. Persons have rights. So that was their way around it to legalizing that corporations, LLCs, even foreign entities, can have rights in America. And that's not the way our representative democracy was supposed to be. And JFK Jr. knew this even in 1999. So when he was going into politics, his number one issue was campaign finance reform, because he already saw the rulings that happened throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s, what was happening to the political system. And he knew that representation was going away. So I'm going to do whatever I can to carry his legacy, to understand and convince everyone that we can remove all the influences, all the power, all the money, if we unite behind a common goal and a common enemy, if you want to call it that. We have a common goal, and it doesn't matter if you're right or left. And that common goal is to go after or eliminate all the corruption in our political system. And that's what the 28th Amendment needs to be. So the 28th Amendment would be that all elections need to be publicly funded by individuals, human beings, and that no artificial entity can be considered a person, meaning corporations are not people and money is not speech. This is the absurdity of it all. We all know that if you ask a 3-year-old, what is a person, they will just point to you and say they know what a person is. It's an individual. I mean, it's so ridiculous that we actually even have to talk about this. We all know what a person is. A person is an individual human being. There's nothing artificial about it. It's a biological human being. It's not an artificial entity. So if you ever want to truly fix the system and bring representation back to the people, and that's just not a phrase, you have to really think about it, because that's what we're really all angry about, that we don't have representation for the people. So thanks for all the confirmation in the comments, everybody, all the yeses and the likes, and please remember to like and follow, and please share the videos that I've been making lately. They've been doing really well, and I'm starting to get the word out. So the 28th Amendment, just remember, all elections need to be publicly funded elections by individual human beings. And that means banning all money out of politics from artificial entities, meaning you can only contribute to an election at a certain amount, like it used to be, if you're an individual human, and everybody's capped at the same amount, let's say $2,000. The 29th Amendment then needs to be that being a politician can only be a temporary civic service. That is what the Founding Fathers envisioned it was supposed to be. And that means term limits. That means you can go to serve in politics, but it cannot be a career. It has to be temporary. And that means term limits. And some people will say, thanks for following, I appreciate it. Some people will say, rightfully so, that term limits are not the answer. They are not the answer in a silo. By themselves, they're not the answer. You need term limits in conjunction, combined with removing money out of politics. When you do those two things, then you change everything. You literally can change everything, because then people who go into politics only can go in for the right reasons, which is to serve their constituents. Because if they can't accept money, big money, that means they can't go in to enrich themselves. So, and there has to be criminal penalties for it, right? So if you do take bribes, and that's what basically lobbying is right now, it's bribery. Whenever someone gives you money in return for a future favor, that is bribery. And that's what paid lobbying is. That's what super PACs are. That's what all special interest, corporate special interest is. It's basically, you're going to have to do me a favor later on. And that's bribery. And that's what we have in our system. We have legalized bribery in the political system. So when you remove the money and you enact term limits, now you have all of our representatives actually representing us as constituents. Now you might say, this is crazy. How are you going to do it? There's lots of nuances. And there are some nuances. But I have a plan. You can find the Linktree link underneath my profile. And you can click on it and you can see a citizen's plan to bring representation back to the people. I've had thousands of people now read this plan. I always expected when I put out this plan that people were going to tear it apart and shred it and say there's so many problems with it. Surprisingly, very few people have done that. I am blown away by the reaction that people who have taken the 5 minutes to read the plan that have generally just agreed with it and said, wow, this is a pretty incredible plan. It could happen, but it's very binary. It is impossible to happen if you don't have enough support. It won't happen. It's impossible. But it's not impossible, and it's actually probable if you have enough people that support it. Whether they're billionaires or corporate special interests, they will always have to fall in line. What they're most afraid about is people coming together behind a cause. That's what wealthy and powerful people are always afraid of. It's a populist movement. That's what their ultimate fear is, always a populist movement of enough people that want to make change. That's the greatest fear to the rich and powerful. And they know it. And this is the reason why all the people that have something to protect and all the companies that have something to protect and all the foreign interests that have something to protect is that they all want us divided. So it's in everyone's best interest, meaning all those powers, all that money, they want us divided. They want us fighting about immigration. They want us fighting about the national debt. They want us fighting with each other about genders. They want us doing all the fighting about culture wars and so forth. That's what they want, because when we're fighting about those things, we actually can't get shit done. We can't ever come together and unify behind something, because then it prevents anything from changing. And that's what they want. So Holly Harley on IG, Montana has a test case to define what corporations are to combat campaign. Yes, I've seen that test case. That's called, is it the Montana Project? Is it something that simple? I just read it 2 weeks ago and I actually forgot the name of it. If Montana prevails, the states might be able to key to defeating Citizens United. That's true. There's some major flaws with that Montana project that I've read about, and it's part of it's in the 14th Amendment. There's some things in the Constitution in the way the rulings have been since 1974 in Buckley versus Vallejo that is still going to be difficult to achieve. That's why I always promote that we have to go for the holy grail of all fixes, which is the 28th Amendment. So Ron Ellis, I have a lot of different screens going on, Ron. Let's see. So I'll try and read your comments as well. So I'm a lot of different screens between YT and on TT and on IG. No, they're all divergent for the real plan. Tell them what the real plan is. I don't know what that means. You got to be a little bit more clear, Ron, if you want me to read the comments. I'm not quite sure what you mean. What's the real plan? Are you referring to, do you know what the real plan and who's behind it? you're welcome to come on the show here, Ron. You can request to join, and you can tell us what the real plan is. I don't do conspiracy, so keep it tight. I can invite you up if you want to be invited onto the live. You're welcome to come on and talk about it. Happy to have you on. Yes, I have videos of these people saying it out loud on video. Okay, not a conspiracy. Okay, that's cool. They call it the New World Order. It's been planned for 20. Oh, no, it's, I know what you're talking about. Are you talking about globalism? Or the global elite? The problem is they seem so. Okay, well, you're welcome to come on the show, Ron, and talk about it. I might shut you down if I think it's a conspiracy. You can also DM me with whatever evidence you might have about, the global elites. There have always been ruling elites, but don't think there's one group trying to, take over the world. They're not. So their plan is the 2011 BMO. Okay. So Ron, send me a DM with whatever information you have, and I'll read it, and then we can possibly talk about it on another live. So if you're here on TT, if you're on TT, TikTok, and you want to join as a guest, that's where the audience is the largest. Please come on and let's have a discussion about this. Welcome to have you on. I would like to change the format to a multi-guest format, but I actually don't know how to do that on TikTok Studio. I'm still figuring out some of the new systems that I have here and how to make this happen. So I would like to have some guests to actually talk about the magic formula. Oh, and by the way, so I talked about the 28th and 29th Amendment, and that 28th Amendment, of course, publicly funded elections, get rid of big money. 29th Amendment, term limits, making sure that being a politician cannot be a career. But then there's the third, sort of like the cherry on top, the holy grail of changing everything, would be ranked choice voting, which means you pick your candidates in order of who you want to win. So if there's 5 candidates, you mark them. I would rank number 1 to win, then number 2 to win, number 3 to win. Ranked choice voting. And that can be done at the state level. There's already a couple states that have ranked choice voting. And what ranked choice voting would do, it would loosen the grip by the two parties on the system. Because if you wanted to vote for an independent, you could vote for an independent without ever worrying, throwing your vote away. So Ron, I see a lot of your comments come through, so I do appreciate your comments. I just can't read them all. I just can't read them all as I'm talking about different things here. So again, send me the DM about this information. So I'm not going to be able to read all those comments that you're posting on TT. But if anyone has some questions in the comments, if you have questions, we can talk about it. And if anyone wants to join the live and have a discussion about some of these things, you're welcome to join. Again, thanks for all the likes. Please follow, subscribe, whatever it is it's called on whatever platform you're on. And I'm trying to get more co-hosts on here, but I don't know how to do it. Okay, so also those of you that are watching, please repost this live to as many people as possible. So I like to do the lives because I like to actually know that I'm talking to people. That's nice, and it's nice to see all the comments coming through. That's really helpful. But also the videos. The videos are so important because the videos get much more reach. So if you're on IG, please repost some of those videos. And if you're on TikTok, do the same. I started out with 0 followers just about 4 or 5 months ago. Under community misinformation that caused moderate harm. All right, so the TikTok the live has been restricted. I don't know what you're talking about. It might be not eligible. Misinformation. Well, TikTok is saying I'm spreading misinformation. I don't know what information that is. Oh, Ron, that must be you. Ron, with all your comments, you're the one. So I'm going to block you, Ron. Bye-bye. You can't have these comments on here. So you just ruined the live for me and everybody else. So thank you very much. So you're all the misinformation, Ron, that you had in the comments. Thank you very much for blowing up this live. It's not appreciated. And I'll block you from now on because you are the reason we just got banned and restricted. So this live's not going to get pushed out to any more people because of a conspiracy theorist named Ron Ellis. I don't know how to appeal it. You can't appeal it live. It doesn't mean I'm not blocked. I'm just, this particular live is restricted. So what I might do is just shut down this live on TikTok and restart it. So if you're on TikTok and you just see me go away, I'm going to come right back and talk about this some more, because once it gets restricted, it really sucks. So it's problematic. So I'm gonna try it again and go from there. So I'll be right back on TikTok. And those of you that are on IG, please keep with your comments, and I'm going to answer some comments in the meantime. So let's see. And now on TT, and I don't know if that has an effect on anybody else. Okay. All right, going live again on TikTok. So Holly Harley 817, would ranked choice voting eliminate the Electoral College? No, it would not. So the Electoral College is a problem, but it's not the biggest problem. It would certainly, because what we really have is a winner-take-all system. This is the problem with the Electoral College, and this is why you always have two parties. You end up always with two parties. You can have as many parties in the United States as possible as you want. There's no limit on the amount of parties by any means. But what happens when you have a winner-take-all system, which means that all the electoral votes go to one, so in any one state, whoever wins an election or whoever gets the most votes gets all those Electoral College votes in almost all states, right? Predominantly, that's how it works. So thanks everybody for coming back on TikTok, as we're just getting started again because we just got restricted because we had a conspiracy theorist in the comments. But anyway, so ranked choice voting, what it would do, well, the winner-take-all system, that's where I was thinking. So it's a winner-take-all system, meaning, so let's say you had three parties. And you could have three parties. There's been many more than three parties in the past. But what happens is whenever you have a dominant party or a party that tends to win, the second and the third party and the second, third, and fourth party, what they end up having to do is join one another in order to defeat the party that's usually winning. So you end up having this natural contraction of parties down to two parties, one versus the other, because it's winner take all. It's not that your electoral votes get distributed based on how many votes that we're giving in a particular state. So that's why it's a winner take all system. That's why it ends up always being two parties, because if you even have more parties, they'll always end up combining into a singular party, and then having two total parties. But ranked choice voting, what it would do, while it wouldn't eliminate the Electoral College, what it would do is it would allow people, let's say you have a popular independent or a third party come in, you could then vote for that independent or the third party. And if that third party gets enough votes and can win, they win, and they win all the votes. And that would allow people to, with their conscience, vote for the third party or the independent. And if that person doesn't win, that's okay, because then their vote, if that person doesn't win, your vote gets redistributed to your second choice. And that second choice would most likely be someone in a party, in one of the two parties. So what you'd have is the opportunity for independents or third parties to rise up. And you would have a much loosening effect of the two-party system. And that's what's really important. So thanks everybody for coming back on TT. Let's see. No conspiracy. I'm going to block comments. People go on rants on comments about some misinformation. You will get blocked. I don't like to block people, but sometimes you have to when people are getting out of hand. So if you have any questions, if anyone wants to join the live, please click on the request button. And you can only do this on TikTok, by the way, because TikTok has, thanks Holly Harley for confirming ranked choice. Got it. Did that make sense? I hope that explanation made sense. So it's really cool to have, even though the audience is small on IG, I've picked up like 2,000 followers on IG just today alone, which is really cool. And I just started posting on IG just a few weeks ago. So I'm trying to expose the content that I'm making, the videos, the messaging, let's call it the messaging, to as many places as I possibly could. All right, cool. Thanks, Holly. So thanks for everybody for joining on TT as well. And we have H Solo. You're going to be joining. And as you're joining, so I got my first guest of the evening. I have a question for those of you on IG. We're going to have a guest that's going to be on TikTok. I don't know if you can hear that guest. So if you can let me know if you hear the guest speaking, please confirm in the comments that you can hear the guest. So welcome to you, H Solo. How are you?
Good. I just want to test. So I don't know how you're set up. So I'm gonna test. I'm gonna say something, and I want the viewers to repeat what I said. So I'm gonna. It's appropriate.
Okay.
I'll say, I love waffles.
Perfect.
If they can repeat what I said, I think you're good. I just want to help you out.
Thank you very much. So Bella, that's heavy, says, yes, we can hear I love waffles. So you heard and America Wake Up Now says the same thing. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. It's very difficult to be able to broadcast in vertical mode and horizontal mode across multiple platforms. So thanks for confirming that, H Solo. Is that for Han Solo, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get,
sometimes.
let me take a wild guess. You're a Gen Xer.
No, I'm a Gen Z.
Oh, awesome. You actually have a voice that sounds very mature.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. So I love having Gen Zs on the show because, and this is not pandering. I think Gen Z is the most important generation in American history. Out of all the generations, millennial, Gen Z, Gen X, and boomers right now, Gen Z is incredibly important if we want American representation to continue. So what say you?
Yeah, I was gonna answer the first prompt, which is a full reset of our political system. I'm actually really quiet. I have a really extreme view in a way, in the sense that I believe that representative democracy isn't an effective way, or an effective way to govern the people. I actually believe in monarchy. So if you disagree, or if you have any questions on my view, I would really love to answer that.
So you're basically, monarchies are typically authoritarian or autocracies of some kind, where you have a ruling. What type of monarchy are you referring to? There are many types.
Yeah, so the monarchy that I hold to, that most, it comes from Aristotle and the Idea Poetics, that most monarchy works if all three types of system are integrated. So we have the king that enforces those laws. We have an oligarchy, or the virtuous people, all virtuous people maintain their local societies. And then we have democracy, where we as the people vote for whoever's is virtuous. So all those three can work. It's not just a basic all authoritarian one type of leader.
Okay. Well, the problem with monarchies is, number one, you can't vote for a monarchy, so it makes no sense. So you don't, are you American?
I am.
Okay. What's wrong with the Constitution as a representative democracy in a constitutional republic? What in the world would you say makes a monarchy better? Ideally, I'm not talking how it's functioning today, how it was designed to be set up and how it was supposed to mature and how it mostly was throughout the 1990s. Tell me why you think, if you can, that a monarchy voting, not having the ability to vote, meaning self-rule. That's the idea of self-rule, right? Is to be able to vote for your representatives. So why is a monarchy in your mind better?
Yeah, I have multiple points, and then we can go over these multiple points. So
yeah, just give me one. Just give me one or two. Let's just try and land the plane relatively short.
First, reasons that we live in a hierarchy nature. Second is that I look more of long-term than short-term results.
Okay, so we've been around for 225 years. Throughout our history, the constitutional republic, up until the past 20 years, most people would argue is continuing to improve. You could say the reason we don't have representative democracy today is because of what the Supreme Court did in allowing so much money into the political system, right? So
yeah, I agree that that's wrong. I don't think that we should so that's the problem. So the first part is that how money is considered free speech, and you can buy electives or representatives, or rig the system. But the second thing is that those kind of officials tend to focus on short term in a way that they do the work in order to get the popular vote, or in this case, get reelected. And I think that's a wrong thing to do. How to govern the society.
Because of the influence of money, right?
Part of it, but also policies of short, like how they are focused on more of a short term.
Let me ask
How-
you something, and this is not meant to be attacking. It's going to sound a little attacking, but what makes you, as a young Gen Zer, believe that you understand the different forms of government better than the founding fathers did, who were extremely knowledgeable and they were scholars and they came from a system of monarchy, right? They all understood, they all came from monarchies, essentially, right? So you had a group of very intelligent men who wanted to create something different than what they came from. And they set up a system that was based on a secular system, separation of church and state, where they wanted the vision to be where all men, which should have been all people, are created equal. And I always find it peculiar when anyone, not just you, comes in and says that they think an authoritarianship or an autocracy or a monarchy is better, and that they think they actually are wiser and more knowledgeable than that group of founding fathers that took 11 years to not only create first write the Declaration of Independence, then go through all the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers, and then ratify a constitution at the Constitutional Convention. So do you understand what I'm saying? Is I always question, like, when someone, even if it was me or anyone else, says that I know better and I think a monarchy is better.
Yeah, that's just like a straw man on the view, because I don't hold the view of a one single ruler authoritarian viewer. I explained what kind of monarchy or what the system should be. Second, I agree with the founding fathers. I actually believe that the Articles of Confederation were which was much more effective than what's going on today as a republic. And the way that states have their own control as a unitary system than just have a binary system, because that leads to more localism on like more of a state, multiple states, or like a unitary system than like a binary system.
Okay. All right. Listen, I don't like to, everyone can have their views. I think I always encourage everyone to try and understand their history deeper and understand our history and, of course, the world history in terms of monarchy and different types of governance. Typically, monarchies will always evolve into a strict authoritarian type rule as that monarchy passes along to more stringent authoritarians. So if you have any information, you can send me it in a DM.
Yeah, I can send you papers, and then I can just like send you a book of Aristotle of politics. How
Well, let me ask you a question. Where does this information come from? Obviously, these books that you've read. So you're being convinced of something else outside of the representative democracy, mostly by these books, or is it something else?
No, it's like multiple. So I view like the news, how government works. So I study how government works in the United States. Philosophy on how we maintain, or like to know what's good or bad, or how to maintain virtues. Thirdly is like theories of law, or theories of systems. And
Okay.
so yeah, like yeah, so I believe in like a monarchy. I also believe like in a laissez-faire capitalist kind of ideals, kind of stuff.
All right. Send me some information that you had. Send it to me in a DM, and I'll take a look to see if I can try and understand your mindset.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining.
Appreciate it.
All right. So we have another guest, or not a new guest. Levi, how are you?
Hey, how's it
Levi?
going?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, honestly, brother. I'm doing fantastic.
All right. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, for sure. You just come out the gate with politics or,
Yeah, well, let
or
me
political
ask you
forms
for
of
what
government.
I sometimes I forget to do this. It's always good to get someone's understanding of where they sit on the political spectrum, what generation you are, and that's about it.
Yeah. Okay. Where do I sit on the political spectrum?
right? Left, center,
I don't know.
communist, fascist. Are you
Well, you
capitalist?
know, my background would my background for uneducated people would be like, oh, he's a communist, right? I moved to America when I was 10 years old. I moved here from Russia and I immediately went, oh, that guy's a communist. He sounds funny. But no, I'm not a communist. Communism doesn't work. It can't work. To my understanding, it won't work unless human greed is removed from the equation. Then sure, it can work. It'll try. Um, I don't know. It's a theory.
Okay.
I'd say I lean a little
What
more
generation?
left. Oh, I'm 20 years old.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks.
I'm very young, still in college, actually.
All right, awesome. Well, it's good to have, we may have a disagreements. We'll find out if we do about certain things. So obviously you're coming from a pretty leftist view, not just leftist when people say left and what they really, like most people don't understand what communism is and what socialism actually is, but you're sitting somewhere along the socialism spectrum. Is that right? And America, wake up now. Can you hear him? Someone's saying for you to speak up. I hear that you pretty well, but I guess the people on Instagram can't.
Yeah, sorry. I don't think socialism can work. I don't think, I think it can work. I think it just needs outside help to work. I think communism will fail. 9 times out of 10, communism will fail on a large scale. On a small scale, sure, communism can work. If like you have a town that's communist, it'll work. But if you have a country or a nation or an empire that's communist, it's going to fail. It's just too big to work.
Not only is it too big to work, communism always fails for a couple of reasons. One, because there's never been communism the way they expected it to be, where everything is divided equally across everybody,
Yeah,
right?
how
That's never
Marx
really
talked
happened.
about it.
And the other thing is it completely stifles innovation. There's no reason for someone who's a harder worker to excel and create new inventions. So in terms of, and listen, humanity is always discovering and always inventing. So communism will always fail because of those two factors and other factors.
Yeah, I would fully agree. I guess we're going to eliminate what we think can't work, I guess, first of all.
Yeah, I mean,
Socialism,
it's on
I don't
its
think
deathbed right now,
socialism-
right? China has a communist, says they have a communist government, but they're a socialistic economy.
Yeah,
They're a capitalistic socialist economy.
they just like their title of CCP,
Right, exactly.
the Chinese Communist Party.
Well,
They
they would like to, I believe, like, the hardliners within China would want a communist system, but they know that can't work, or it doesn't work, right? And China's entire rise has been based on capitalism, but it's sort of very restricted capitalism. It's capitalism until they don't like what you're doing, and then it's socialism because the state just comes in and takes whatever you did, and they take it from you.
Yeah. I think that socialism won't work without outside help. I think that when you have a socialist country like Denmark, for example,
Denmark's not socialistic, just so you know. And everybody thinks that. So a lot of people think Scandinavian countries operate under socialism. They do not. They operate under
they're really not.
They're really not. They have some social programs. They have some socialistic industries where the entire industry is socialism, but they are all capitalistic systems with portions of certain industries that are socialistic.
Yeah, you are correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's
Yeah,
just,
I didn't know that. Sweet.
We just get used to thinking that, Scandinavian countries are socialism. They're not. They just have a lot of social programs, more than others, but they work within the self-rule and capitalistic system. So it's just important for everybody else that's listening to understand that we always trigger, like, we don't want to be like Finland. Well, Finland is just has a lot more social programs. That's all.
Yeah. Look at the whole premise. Well, the United States gives them a lot of money, right, for defense budget and things like that.
Gives who a lot of money?
Like, from what I've heard and some of the things I've read, the United States and NATO as a whole gives those Norwegian kind of countries a lot of money for a defense budget.
No, not at all, actually. So they're supposed to spend 2% of their own GDP on defense, and up until recently, they haven't been. Now they're spending well over that. So,
okay.
So that's also, I understand why you misconstrue that, because people say we protect our allies, and yes, we ultimately made a promise to most of Europe after World War II that you don't have to militarize drastically because we don't want you fighting each other. And we're going to come in. You need to solve things diplomatically. And that's what Roosevelt did after World War II. Now, with that said, they were supposed to still spend 2% of their own GDP on military. And they didn't do that because they were never under any threat. And people like Trump and other people in the past, not just Trump, have said, we're supporting them. We're spending too much money. No, that had nothing to do. We were always spending a lot of money. We're spending $1 trillion a year practically on our military. But that money wasn't going to them. Now, people will say, well, we were spending that money in those countries because we had bases in those countries. And that is true. But we do that for our own interest, not so much for their interest. That's in our own best interest.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I get what you mean. Okay, yeah, sweet. Yeah, I didn't know that. Thank you for the information. I actually appreciate it.
Yeah, listen, it's complicated. It's hard, right? So yeah, we don't give our allies money directly. We do give a lot of money to a lot of third world countries, or we did with US aid, and that's called soft power, right? So when we give money to support or even prop up governments, even non-democratic governments, we do that also not because we're trying to be kind. We do that for one, that we do try and promote American values in those countries, and we would like them to turn democratic. But the real reason we do it is because we want access to their resources. We want to have influence in that country, for whether it's for mineral rights or oil rights. When you have relationships with people, they're more likely to make deals with you. And when we don't give money, like when we pulled out of US aid, people say, well, we shouldn't be giving that much money away. You can make an argument for that. But the bottom line is, when you pull away and we don't give them that money, number one, it creates chaos in that country, and they have to look for other influence. And that's when people like China or Russia will step in and fill that void. And then they have that influence, which that's what's called soft power.
Yeah. I think, if I'm not mistaken, an example of that would be with Burkina Faso, right?
I'm not Burkina
Where the
Faso.
new leader.
I'm not sure on. I don't know that many specifics about that.
Yeah, well, because from my understanding, there's a new leader. He took over, and he hated the French government, so he kicked France out of everything. Like, got rid of all the, all of their mineral rights, all that, paid them all the money back that they owed them. And then Russia and Burkina Faso were now like best friends.
Right.
Putin likes Burkina Faso or something like that.
You think of it this way. If you are in a poor country that has a lot of upheaval and you end up coming into power, and you're most likely going to be a dictator of some kind, your power is always very sketchy, right? You may not be in power that long. You're not holding like an extreme amount of power. So your ability to remain in power comes from having friends or powerful friends that can help you stay in power, right? So at the end of the day, if you're in Somalia and you wanted to remain in power and you had to extract minerals out of the earth, whether it's oil or other minerals or whatever, you need to make relationships with some country that has the experience and the technologies and the manpower to get that, extract that stuff out of the ground, right? And then of course you get paid, and that makes you rich. So when you're in a very poor country and you don't have resources and you don't have technology, and you are a leader of that country or trying to become a leader, you have really no choice but to find powerful, rich friends to kiss up to. And you'll do it with whoever it is. You'll do it whether they're nefarious actors or bad actors, or whether they're more better actors, right? And everyone, even America, can be very bad actors at times when it comes to that type of, mineral extraction.
Wait, yeah, I got you. Okay, cool. Yeah, well, I appreciate the information. The real reason I came up here was to just ask your opinion on. I don't think the two-party system is the greatest thing in the world.
I agree.
I think that it opens the way for a lot of disagreement. I think it opens the way for a lot of maybe greed, corruption to be held. Maybe even opens the way for a lot of outside influence to be used in American politics.
Are you familiar with George Washington's farewell address? okay to say no.
I vaguely know. I know exactly what you're talking about. I can't quote it, but I do know what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, his farewell address was a warning. This is the first president of the United States, was a warning to America that to be careful of the formation of parties, because people will end up being more loyal to the party than they are to the nation. And he was against
Yeah.
the party formation. And that was the very first president throwing out that warning. And that's exactly what's happened today, right? People are not Americans first.
Yeah,
They're either Republicans or
we didn't-
Democrats first.
Yeah, we didn't heed his warning. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
he knew it. He saw it. I mean, this is how incredibly wise and knowledgeable these people were. He didn't ever really want to become president either. He was just end up, because of his wisdom, he was basically said, "I'll do it." You know, many of the founding fathers, there's only 3 of them that ever became presidents, and they didn't really want to, but they felt like they needed to.
I get you. Yeah, I get you. Yeah, and I mean, I think
And Jonah, you're up
When-
next, just so you know, Jonah.
Yeah.
I think that when we're kind of looking at like, I think sometimes American politics gets more interested in geopolitics than it does its own politics. I think sometimes our senators and our presidents and our, governors, they get more interested in what's going on outside than what's going on inside. And I think inside should be prioritized number one all the time.
Let me give you something else to think about on that. So that's a lot of Americans think that way. But I'd offer you to be very careful with that thought. It makes sense to be sort of an isolationist thinking that we should need to take care of ourselves first. But think of the quote, "With great power comes great responsibility." And the way after World War II, prior to World War II, the world has always been at war, essentially. There's been just constant wars. We set up a system with our allies that we want to resolve things through diplomacy and that we want to encourage self-rule around the world. And in order to do that, as the most powerful, richest country in the world, it's extremely vital in our interest, for us long-term, that we continue to promote American values and self-rule around the world, because that's proven to be the most successful and most peaceful thing to do. So geopolitics are not something that should be looked at as everybody else. We're helping everybody else. Again, America does not, we're really always helping ourselves. It's in our best interest and it's our responsibility. We should look at it as a great privilege that the United States, in terms of where it is a great privilege that we have the ability to have so much influence. If you ever heard the expression, when America sneezes, the rest of the world gets a cold. Like, we're the heartbeat of democracy around the world, even though we're not functioning as a very good democracy right now. So we have to do both, and we can do both. We should be very spreading our values across the world like we have been since the end of the World War II. And at the same time, because we are the richest, most powerful nation in the world, we should absolutely be taking better care of our own citizenship, our own citizens in society.
Absolutely. I mean, I would fully agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
I think that we definitely have an obligation, and I wouldn't say like a direct obligation, but kind of like this sense of we kind of like have to, because, I mean, like I said, right before World War II, it's constant war. Everybody was at each other's throats. Everybody hated everybody. And now everybody hates everybody, but they hate each other diplomatically. Not like, I'm going to invade and take you over because I hate you.
Well, just like in a simple fact, for the most part, even though we get ahead of our skis lots of times, all true democracies don't go to war that often. People who live in a democracy and have a say in their politics almost never vote to go to war. It's people with egos and authoritarians that typically go to war.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely. But yeah.
Well, cool.
You can move on to your next
joining.
guest.
Sorry, go ahead. Do you want one last word?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, just thank you, appreciate you talking to me and enlightening me on some of the information that you've given me, and I definitely look into it. Definitely hope to expand my knowledge on it.
Cool. Thanks for joining the show, Levi. I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right. Sorry for the long wait, Jonah. How are you today?
I'm good. No problem about that.
What generation and where do you sit on the political spectrum?
Gen Z, and I'm a Marxist.
Okay, a Marxist. So I'll probably won't let you go too far because I'm all about promoting representative democracy.
I can promote good discussion without going too far into theory.
Okay.
But first, can I first pose a question to you related to the previous discussion?
Yeah, but just remember, what generation are you again?
Generation Z.
You're Gen Z, and you're a Marxist. Okay. All right, go for it.
Yeah,
What's your question?
that usually happens, right?
Yeah. I understand why. I understand why a lot of Gen Zers are going in that direction.
I would have to question what exactly you know about Marxism. But before that, where exactly has exporting American values actually produced a successful country, other than Western Europe, which already built up democratic institutions?
So where has it? Let's think about this. So I am not for us. I'm always for us trying to advance our American values, but never forcing.
I'm just asking where it succeeded.
Well, you're not. Well, how about the rest of this? All the former Soviet states.
Where they experience a capitalist shock and are in a worse economic condition than they were under the Soviet Union.
No,
and I'm not pro-Soviet Union, by the way, but
they were in a shock, but most of them are not in that shock anymore.
Right. So we're talking about Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. I believe Poland.
That's the Baltics, right? You have all the Baltics, and then you have Poland. Look at Poland.
And the rest of the previous Soviet states are still kind of fucked right now, right?
No, some are. So you got Romania, and you have others that have a severe amount of Russian influence that are still, but most of the ones that have made a turn to the EU are not so at all. Lithuania, Latvia, they're doing very well compared to what they used to be.
Right. So Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, right? Those are already close to the imperial core, and already established relationships with Scandinavian nations. I'm asking where in the U.S. has actively exported its democracy. Has it actually worked?
Japan,
where they already had industrial institutions, they already had a governmental system.
They were an imperial nation prior in World War II.
And so were we.
No, we were not an imperial nation. We're a representative democracy.
Why? Okay, how's that different? First of all, why did Japan go to war with us?
Because they needed resources.
And where did they want the resources from?
From China and other areas. They want in their sphere of influence.
There's a country right under Taiwan that they wanted to.
Which one? The Philippines?
Yeah, and whose territory was it?
Whose territory was it?
Who owned the Philippines?
And was it the British?
America.
Oh, that's right. The Philippines. That's right. When we did release the Philippines from the American rule. That's
we
right.
didn't release it yet.
We didn't. What's your
released
point?
It after the World War.
So we
and
don't
so
want to go
all,
too nuanced in things. So you said American democracy, the spreading of American values hasn't worked. You're wrong about that. It's worked in the former Soviet republics. It's worked in Japan. And it's worked in other places. So
where
that's wrong.
Institutions were already built.
So now you're moving the goalposts.
No, okay, sure. Let's say I'm moving the goalposts. Where we've actively built and exported American democracy, specifically in previous nations that we were trying to raise up from the ground, like in Africa and the Middle East, has it actually worked?
No, it hasn't worked in a lot of places.
Yeah. So in Japan, where they already had industrial institutions, it worked. It worked just fine.
Industrial institutions? You mean industrialization?
They had industrialization, and they had institutions that were already built and functioning. All we did was repurpose them. And in fact, honestly, there's nothing substantially different from the old imperial Japanese government and the modern Japanese government. The only difference is the military isn't in power anymore.
That's an incredible difference. I don't know where you're coming from.
So the military wasn't in power of their own government, but they were acting without the government. That's literally the only difference.
Okay, no, they have a one-party system with a representative democracy in Japan, and a one-party system that actually works fairly well. And there's nothing wrong. The amount of parties is not indicative of whether a society is self-rule and capitalist and a representative democracy or not.
All right. Anyway, so that was honestly just a side question. I just wanted to get to the main topic. full reset of the political system. Like, what's your perspective on like why we need a full reset?
Well, first, let's define what a full reset is. What I mean by that is that our representative, and you're going to like this probably in terms of being what you think of Marxism, is because we all know that capitalism, unregulated capitalism, creates incredible inequality, right? And that's probably why you're a Marxist to some degree, or want to believe in Marxism. When the system needs a full reset, it's because prior to 1970s and prior to 1990s and prior to some rulings, there were strict regulations on a lot of things. There were regulations, the fairness doctrine on the media. There were more regulations on campaign finance restrictions and so forth. And the American democracy and the amount of inequality was less. It was a much less. What's happening now is because now our representatives could care less about representing the people. They represent the corporate special interests. They represent the NGOs. They represent foreign governments and foreign agents and lobbyists and all these other forces. So this is the problem with the American experiment right now, is because it runs on a capitalistic system that has full unregulated elections based on money. So that's what a full reset needs. It doesn't mean ripping up the Constitution, doesn't mean actually doing anything to the Constitution other than restricting money in elections. That alone would start bringing power back to the people because their representatives would represent them and not corporations. And that would inevitably lead to less inequality, drastically less inequality.
Sure, and I would agree with that point, but I would have to ask, how would we achieve that?
By passing a 28th Amendment that restricts corporate special interest money and all big money in elections. You need to have publicly funded
Right,
elections.
and so how do we even get to that point? And how would the 28th Amendment and the enforcement of the 28th Amendment ever frame that out?
Oh.
Corporations are ingrained into our economy and into our daily life.
I'm not
It's
saying
just
that
part system.
corporations shouldn't have a voice. I'm saying that the people before profits, right? So this is going towards where people say, well, that's communism, well, that's Marxism. No, it's still capitalism.
It's not.
It's representation for the people, by the people. That was the ideal that the founding fathers set up. And that's what we were always moving towards up until the 70s and 80s and 90s, where it started to go the other way. So that's, and I forgot the specific part of your question.
Right. So my problem with that is the fact that it's an ideal, right? So I mentioned earlier when you brought up the farewell address, right? Mm-hmm. I think the farewell address is a pile of dog shit, in my opinion. Not because I think that George Washington is wrong. I think he's very correct in the fact that the divided party system and the two-party system and any sort of parliamentary party system, as could have been seen in the UK, will inevitably lead to people choosing the party, and often the party representing foreign interest over blah blah blah, right?
Right, that's what George Washington threatened, right?
Right.
That foreign interests would have a lot more voice.
So my main issue with that, and why I think it's a pile of horse shit, is that inevitably the party system would exist. There was no way to stop it. There's no functional way to stop it. In the same way, I don't think there's any functional way that you can, first of all, pass that 28th Amendment, ensure that big money does not represent and the American government doesn't represent profit over people without a total economic reset.
No, that's not true. I don't believe in any of that. So
right, and so when in history have we been able to implement such ideals of people over profit?
There have been other instances in other forms of government.
Right, and what happened to those governments?
What happens to every government? They all end up going away. Every government ends up failing eventually. It just depends. There's nothing that says that after 224 years that the American experiment has to fail now. The reason it's failing is not because of the Constitution. It's not because of the system of government. It's because of the people in government and the influence. So you asked, how would you pass the 28th Amendment? There's been 17 amendments that have been passed. It's not impossible. I'm not saying it's easy. But if you have a populist movement, whether you want to talk about like Occupy Wall Street or other movements, but it needs to be even bigger, much bigger. If you had 50 million people that wanted to pass a constitutional amendment and forced and would be able to vote out existing career politicians, you absolutely could do it. It's been done before. It's not nearly as difficult or as impossible as most people think. Yes, it does take a lot of people, but if you had an inspirational leader that stood up, look what Mamdani has done in New York, right? He came out of nowhere because he had a message that resonated. That could be applied nationally. And I'm not suggesting that's the type of thing we need. I'm just saying, when you have the right message and enough people follow it, that is the ultimate power in any society. It's when people rise up for something, whether it's through violence or nonviolence, they can rise up through nonviolence. They've done that here in the United States with the voting rights era and the civil rights era in the 60s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and all the amount of consumer protections. Americans used to hit the streets and go to Washington and protest en masse. And those protests led to dramatic changes in our government. So when you say it can't happen, it can happen. We just now need to do it again for a 28th and 29th Amendment. So I understand your pessimism, but that's a defeatist attitude. And you're trying to think that going towards something totally different, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, towards Marxism is the answer. If we continue to go down this path, yes, we will fail. And there will be probably some violence. And what comes out of that ruins, who knows? No one knows, right? That's the scary part.
Right, and so my problem with that, there's a couple things I want to bring up in what you said. First thing is, you said the true power lies in the people and in the people within governance. That's one thing I'm going to contend against. Two, and how you believe the civil rights movement succeeded in the first place. Right. If I quote Huey P. Johnson, Angela Davis, some of those strongest leaders of the civil rights movement, all the way back into from Occupy Wall Street to I believe the Stonewall protests. Right. The most resonating quote was, "We failed the civil rights movement." And the fact that that a lot of people believe, and which I think is the huge framing of your entire argument, which I would say as a Marxist is extremely idealist and utopian. The idea that people within government and the government itself is what changes society. From my perspective, like as a Marxist, right? It's not Mamdani that's going to change New York. It's the fact that the people were marginalized by the economic transformations of New York that led to Mamdani's rise. In the same way, we would say it's not the government that should be changed. It's the economic system that creates the government in the first place. The only reason the American Revolution happened was to protect American interests from British imposition, right? And those governments are meant to protect national economic interests. In fact, I believe capitalism was the best fit for the American system at the time, and even now, I would say. And all of those things. It's not. I wouldn't even say capitalism is the issue. It's the fact that that organization doesn't happen inside of the government. It happens through a reorganization of economic issues, material issues, and the people on the ground.
You can't reorganize those economic issues without the people on the ground. Like you're not going to have the people in power.
It's the people on the ground. It's not the power imposed from abstract governance. The people in the offices, all of those must comply with how the economic conditions on the ground are, no matter how much they try to not to. They're shaped by economic conditions. They're shaped by the material conditions of the time, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course they are. Not entirely. That's not the economic conditions. The conditions of society matter as well. That a lot of that applies around economics, of course. Economics. So that's why you have a representative democracy and capitalism, right? You have capitalistic as an economic system and representative democracy. That's what the great experiment of American democracy is. And the contention here is you think it's failing. I'm saying it's only failing because of those economic interests have had so much influence. Any of these sort of hands that they had tied. So they used to pay up to 90% in a tax rate, right? The wealthiest people in America used to pay up to 90% in income taxes, with people making over $4 million a year back in the 1960s. The reason our representation has waned is because those forces have manipulated the system to allow them to pay less in taxes so they can keep more of their money. They have removed the restrictions on campaign financing, so they can now buy elections essentially, right? So the powers and the people have allowed it to happen. So the United States society and our system have allowed these things to happen. And these wealthy individuals have also manipulated the court system in order to, like corporations or people, right? So you think it's failing, and I actually think it's, it's obviously not working either, but it's not working because it's a systemic failure. It's not working because of the influences of the people, not because of the type of system that it is, whether that's the economic system or the political system.
Right. We agree more than agree on a lot of points.
We do.
Now, it's not that I think that the system is inevitably failing, right? I believe that you're making a categorical error by distinguishing the political system from the economic system. The foundation of Marxist theory was a critique of political economy, which is what the book Capital was about. It was called A Critique of Political Economy, the distinction of politics from the economy, as saying that politics maybe can control the economy, politics can regulate the economy, politics is separate from the economy. The entire idea of Marxism was that the economy is what shapes all of human society. Economy not just as in how we buy things, how we trade things, right? Economy as in everything that shapes our interests, our greed, what we need, and what we want. And so what we want, our greed, our interests obviously conflict with the people in power, right? It doesn't mean the people in power are people in power are evil or are explicitly manipulating the system, right? We're saying because of the inevitable position of them being in a different class and us being in a different class, right? And us being in a different class, and the state being a regulator, not as something that exists distinct, but as something that is created by the economic system, is representing the class that is currently on top. So it's not about evil bourgeois manipulating the court systems, manipulating the government, lobbying the government. That is the main issue from the Marxist perspective. The reason why it's systemic is because capital, right? It's not the money that's the issue. It's the fact that the government is necessarily formed to protect private property, to protect the productive forces and the people who own the productive forces. And that's just my perspective.
We have a couple of questions for you.
Economy.
So Holly Harley on IG says, as an example, show us an example of a successful Marxist government. And then 2 questions for you. And then there's another individual that's a regular listener, TWHMT, says, Karl Marx said that he wasn't a Marxist. So can you answer either? Do you want to answer either of those?
I can answer the first one, the latter one first, because that's a really simple explanation. Karl Marx was talking to a bunch of idiots in France who were saying Marxist points without ever reading the theory. It's similar to a lot of quote unquote Gen Z Marxists you see today that are talking about eat the rich, right? And so they would say a bunch of slogans and call themselves Marxists, and Karl Marx was really disappointed with that. Secondly, the question from her, she's explain a working Marxist government. There's no such thing as a working Marxist government. That's not how it works. Marxism, to its either discredit or credit, posits itself as a science, which I have issues with myself.
Well, Marxism is the journey towards basically communism.
Not necessarily, right?
No, it is. That's what it's the destination. Communism is the destination.
Marxism they would say communism is the movement itself. I think you're describing communism. Marxism is simply posit itself, quoting Karl Marx, is a system of analysis of capital and how capital moves. Maybe you're looking at too many postmodern writers who want to integrate Marxism as a political system. It's not.
Well, it's still
It's just
Marx's
saying
vision was still that there's no private ownership, right, of production,
that's true, right?
and there's no social classes, and ideally there's no state. That's communism, right? So that was the
Okay,
vision. No, don't have
yeah,
a
yeah,
state and don't have classes and don't own anything. Like this is a utopia. This is I call it similar to people who claim that they're libertarians, that basically say, get out of my way. There needs to be less regulations. We should be able to do whatever we want, and people will just act in their best interest and be good people. Like these are both utopia, whether you're a libertarian or a Marxist or communist. These are not. They're more theories. They're not practical ways of operating a government, and you see that
right.
in the world.
So, allow me to expand on that. Right, it's not that the people will police themselves. Marxism's stateless, classless, moneyless society is never posited to be a good society. It's just a society where those things are negated, first of all, right? Can we achieve a society that is stateless, that is moneyless, and that is and classless? That's the question that's asked first. And the reasoning for that is, as outlined in Capital, because of, I don't want to get too much into theory because I want this to keep this a lay live, right?
Yeah, you're gonna get.
But
People are gonna get.
it's how like one class can exploit the other. What if we make a society where there's no classes that exploit the other? Which in that explanation seems a little utopian at first, but but in understanding and understanding why that hasn't been visualized. Marx said it himself, and even before the USSR's Marxists have been saying this the entire time. If the revolution happens, it has to happen in America or Europe. America and Europe. Why? Because Marxism, once again, is not an economic system. It's not a political system. It's a theory of history. If you have an issue with how it theorizes history, that's where we can have a debate on. But how Marxism sees history is constantly going forward. And because capitalism is constantly developing itself, it's one of the most majestic systems to ever exist, will continuously develop itself to the point where it can reach a critical mass, especially in the advanced capitalist countries like America and Europe, where they can distribute their own productive forces to serve the entire world. And that's where you can start debating if that is utopian or not.
Okay. Well, listen, I always appreciate a good debate, and this wasn't necessarily a debate, a discussion about these things. I actually, I don't know if I don't want to put your words in your mouth or any Gen Zers, but I understand it makes sense why a lot of your generation is disenfranchised. And tell me if I'm wrong, and then I'm going to move on to a different guest, is disenfranchised of the state of the American political and economic system. Is that a fair statement? Do you think that's fair?
I would say so. The reason I turned to Marxism wasn't because of that. It was because I actually believed it had a correct theory of history. If anything, I benefit from the system myself. I'm bourgeois myself.
And explain to everybody bourgeois.
So bourgeois is the class in the system who owns private property, right?
Right. In the capitalist
And
system.
not just who owns
what
private
are the
property.
workers? What's the definition of that?
The workers are those who are disenfranchised from private property, not being able to access private property, and also who have their surplus value extracted by people who own private property.
Right. Okay. Well, cool. Well, thanks for joining. Like I said, I think Gen Z is really important. I think reading into these theories is really important. Your views will certainly evolve in one direction or the other as you get older and you continue to understand obviously the practical reality of the world. And I'm an idealist, by the way. I have very, very deep thoughts about ideals.
We clearly saw the distinction here.
Yep.
I believe.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining. And I hope to see you in future lives.
All right. See ya.
See ya. Okay. So this is definitely off topic. So those of you that stuck around for that, thanks for sticking around. I don't have any other guests in the queue. I would ask TWHMT. I saw your comment yesterday. You're a regular guest of the show. If you want to come up and talk about any of those, you said he was sort of waffling on some of his beliefs. And if you want to come up and talk about that, you're welcome. That was interesting. When were Gen Z born? Gen Z was born, I think the oldest Gen Zer right now is around 30. So that would be 1995. Was that right? Sorry, I'm getting my generations wrong. So you got Gen Alpha, Gen Z, Gen Y. Gen Zs started. Why am I forgetting this? This is something that I'm normally just have locked in loaded in terms. You tell me a year, I know where you are. Okay, understand TWHMT. It's not you're not in the right place. All right. Does anyone else want to join? So I'm going to get back to the main topic of this because I am a capitalist. I believe in capitalism, but I believe in regulated capitalism. It's the representative democracy's responsibility to regulate. People don't like that word regulation. They think it's evil. Yeah, it comes with some downsides. There's always consequences to regulation that are negative. But without regulation, you have, lack of a better word, tyranny in economics. You have extreme exploitation, right? You need regulation in a representative democracy, strong regulation against companies from exploiting all of society too much. It's a balance. That's what representative democracy in a constitutional republic is. It's end up sort of like in the middle of the teeter-totter, because if you go too far on one side, you end up going towards communism. You go too far to the other side, you end up going towards fascism. So the democratic experiment is always teeter-tottering back and forth. And right now, we don't have representation for the people. We have, of course, the corporations and the foreign governments. As George Washington said in his farewell address, he was worried about foreign influences influencing the party system. It's like incredible, like 220 years ago, 216 years ago, George Washington gives a speech and warning us about a two-party system and the influences of foreign governments in our political system because of the parties. That's what's stunning about this, is that he knew full well the risks with a two-party system or with parties forming. So that was certainly very telling. He predicted basically the future from then. You know much about Jerzy Besma, aka Thomas? I don't actually know very little. Actually, I don't even know if I've heard that name before. So I apologize for that. And thanks for all the likes and follows, everybody. I'm now broadcasting on 3 different platforms, which is really cool. If you want to know what the magic formula is, I always try and preach it. I just need a lot more people to hear it. Some of the videos have been doing really, really well. And it seems like there's no shortage of people that would support a 28th Amendment to eliminating the corruption in our political system, eliminating money from our political system. There's clearly enough people that would want to do that. It's just a matter, can we get the message out there to those people? Because we have to eliminate all the corruption by greed in the system. And that's the 28th Amendment. And people think it's like the last caller says, it's a big lift. It's impossible. It's probably not going to happen. It doesn't matter. If you have 50 million people, it can and it will happen. If you have more than 50 million people, it'll certainly snowball into far more than that. And then you can pass a 28th Amendment, and you can have 3/4 of the states ratify a 28th and a 29th Amendment. The power is ultimately in the people. And it's just, do we want to continue to be divided and not have it happen? You know, life is short, people, right? Life is really short. And do we want to wake up every day and worry about our kids' futures and the future generations, and we just want to do nothing? Like I always say that boomers, and especially Gen X, my generation, millennials, and Gen Z, who better WTF, who better wake up, because every generation has had to fight for freedom and liberty and the rule of law and for their civil rights. They have to fight for it. It's not a spectator sport. Democracy has to be a participation sport. Now, the participation is easier than ever than it has been comparatively in the past. You used to have to go out and protest. And protests, if they were large enough, could still be effective. But the problem is we don't ever have protests that are large enough. So we can be divided on social media to an incredible extent. Like this is almost totally fictional, that our division in the real world is really not nearly as severe as it is on on the alternative universe or on the digital world is where we're really all divided. In the real world, it's much less pronounced. It's just that we hear about it because it's easy to divide people through content. So that also means that it's easier than ever to unite people through content and through influence and becoming relevant. So it's really important that people understand that if you repost 28th and 29th Amendment, we figure out what the exact right messaging is, and you continue to do it over time, it will attract enough attention. And the thing is, it will attract enough attention from people on the right and the left, because it's not something, for the people on the right, they think about things like draining the swamp, and that's the same thing as eliminating the corruption from our political system. And the people on the left think about it as making sure billionaires and there can be no oligarchy. These are very similar ideals. So whether you're an independent or you're on the left or you're soft on the right, I'm not going to say full MAGA because sometimes MAGA obviously is just so far gone at times. But when you continue to talk about the right thing, what the real solution is, what the magic formula is, it's a 28th and 29th Amendment. I've spent the last 10 years thinking about ways to fix things, and everything else is a Band-Aid. Everything else is just a Band-Aid. You actually need transformational change. And when I say transformation, it doesn't mean revolutionary change, meaning ripping up the Constitution. The Constitution is an amazing document. I encourage everyone to please read the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and even the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers. And if you're not sure what they were, in between the Declaration of Independence, which is declaring independence from England, and the Constitution being ratified 11 or 12 years later, there was a series of, call them arguments or debates that happened in the newspapers in the 13 colonies, where the Federalists, they were promoting a strong federal government, that they needed a strong federal government. And the Anti-Federalist, sounds very negative. No, they were just Anti-Federalist. They wanted strong individual and state rights. And the Constitution couldn't be ratified until everyone came together and tried to ratify a constitution, because the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, you can almost think of it as like the Republican and Democratic Party of the time, even though it wasn't a party system, it wasn't a parties at that time, is that you just had people more focused on individual rights and states' rights on the Anti-Federalists, and then you had certain founding fathers and other influential people at the time that were promoting a strong central government. So what they ended up coming to was the Bill of Rights. The first 10 amendments was because of the Anti-Federalist, protecting states' rights and individual rights. And that's what I'm suggesting. So most amendments are protecting individual rights, whether it's voting, the civil rights era and the voting rights era and so forth, is protecting individual rights. And the 28th Amendment needs to protect individual rights, individuals to be able to finance elections only and not corporations. It's really an extension of the Anti-Federalist movement is what a 28th Amendment would be. And a 29th Amendment would also return representation back to the people. So I don't know if that really doesn't define with the Federalist or Anti-Federalist views. So that's my thoughts. So if you haven't read, it's easier than ever to research this stuff. You can do it in sort of Cliff Notes style through ChatGPT and so forth. If you haven't read these things, they're incredible reads. And history is really, the more you read it, the more you understand how intelligent and how wise these people were that created the Constitution and the founding fathers were, even with all their flaws and all their ethical and moral flaws. They were still brilliant people that had a vision for this country. And I'm saying to everybody that's here, the whopping people that are here, that we need to ensure that we try and protect that experiment that the founding fathers set up for us. So I'm going to take some questions in the comments. And if anybody else wants to join and talk about the magic formula, let me know. The right is learning for it. Let's see. Can we agree, Lady Liberty, can we agree that our government has shifted? We are no longer a democracy. Yes, we can. Mr. Global, welcome. Long time no see, Mr. Global.
TK.
Hey, man, what's up? It's late where you are.
It's a late night. It is.
I know you laying down in bed, I'm assuming.
No, I'm in my office,
Oh, look at you. All right.
just hanging out.
Well, welcome back. Good to have you here. I got restricted earlier because someone was going off in the comments and I couldn't ban them quick enough, so couldn't block them. So clearly the lives get restricted if someone is spreading misinformation in the comments. So just an FYI. I want to answer
I won't do that.
I have to do a better job. I actually have a better setup now where I can do it a little bit easier as well. Lady Liberty, I absolutely agree with that. Can we agree our government has shifted? We are no longer a democracy. Well, technically we are a representative democracy because we still do vote and we still do have representatives, but it's certainly not functioning that way. That's the bullshit of this all. So we're clearly not functioning as a representative democracy. And I don't know if I'm using the right word, but in the founding fathers' standards, if you don't have a government for the people, by the people, you no longer have a legitimate government. I know that's a strong word, but it's actually true. If you actually think about it deeply, doesn't have to be that deeply. If you don't have representation for the people, meaning your representatives are not representing the people in mass, do you even have a representative democracy anymore? And the answer to that is no. And then it's the responsibility of the people to rise up and change it. And that's what's really important here. And that's what actually makes an illegitimate government, is when you have representatives that are just a facade. So people, Russia, after the Soviet Union, Russia likes to call them, or let's say the Democratic Republic of North Korea. There's nothing democratic about North Korea. And Russia also had elections, but there was nothing democratic about the elections when there's no opposition running against you, or that opposition is so small and minute, it's just a facade, right? It's not there's no real competition. If the competition has no chance of winning, you no longer have a democracy. You just have a dog and pony show.
I agree.
Yeah. So
Why are we on this path, TK? Where did we go wrong?
are you just goading me? No, 19.
To be honest, I'm not too sure what you mean by that. Could you explain?
Yeah, I don't know if you're just goading me into saying, repeating something that I say all the time or not. Or do you want to actually know? I already repeat myself too often.
Well, that's part of the gig, right?
Yeah, it is. It's hard to do sometimes. Where we went wrong.
I would imagine.
There's no one instance where we went wrong, right? There's hundreds of events, hundreds of things, that maybe thousands of little cracks, little openings that various groups have seen that have exploited the system, and everyone has done it. Like since Reagan, when it comes to campaign finance reform, I mean, Reagan, Clinton, Bush, and not so much Obama, even though Citizens United happened under Obama, the Supreme Court in 2010, like all these things have been nuanced, little things that change, and every change is like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's sort of like lifting regulations on environmental protections, like on water. You start to say, well, we don't need that regulation anymore. Our water's clean. You lift that regulation, and tomorrow your water doesn't change that much. But in 5 years, all of a sudden, a data center came in, and they didn't have the environmental protections, and that data center is now polluting a town's water. So these little cracks that happen, and media has warned us in the past, or other people, journalists, real journalists, have warned us about these things. And of course, we're just too busy in our lives. We're like, well, a little less regulation is not bad. It's not going to change things that much. But you do that, what's a cut by 1,000? What's that expression?
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Death by 1,000 cuts. That's exactly what went wrong, right? There's no one instance.
For sure.
Aka Tambu, first time on your live. He meant live, of course. Thanks for being here. Love is always good too. Nothing wrong there. So thanks for participating, everybody. Thanks for the additional follows. Please continue to repost the videos. That's what really is meaningful. I should cross 40,000 followers after not having any followers 4 or 5 months ago, or hardly any followers 4 or 5 months ago. 40,000 will turn into 100,000. 100,000 will turn into 1 million. And then we're, I don't have a great expression, cooking with gas. Then we're cooking with gas. I need to step up my analogy game.
That's your Gen Z. You're cooking.
Yeah.
You're cooking.
You get to 1 million, and then we actually might have a snowball effect here. Thanks for all the people on IG as well. Not that many people on IG, but it's actually cool to be broadcasting on IG as well. So
you're on Instagram. Very cool.
Yeah, and Instagram was awesome today. I picked up 2,000 followers today alone on Instagram.
Very nice.
So, I can't make heads or tails. I know we're going off topic for those of you that are still here. If you ever get into this content creator game, it's so effed up. I'm telling you, it's very humbling, and you don't know what you're doing. You put a video out on YouTube and it gets like 2 views. You put the same video up on TikTok and it might get 300,000 views. Then you put the same video up on Instagram and it gets like 100 views. And the next day you put another video up and it's completely reversed. Something explodes.
Well, then the analytics of it all, right? Like you have to see how long are people watching, right? Are they watching 5 seconds, 1 second? Are they just swiping through? Are they watching the whole thing?
Yeah, that's right. And actually what I'm finding on the analytics is the most, and Akatumbo, I actually will talk about the Heritage Foundation a little bit, since we're sort of going after hours now on this topic. So I'll come right back to that in a minute. Is reposting, resharing. That's why I'm telling people again to repost. Reposting in the algorithms, both on Instagram and TikTok at the very least. I'm not sure about YouTube. What I see is when enough people repost, and on Instagram, when the right person reposts with a lot of followers, then it blows up. So reposting, it's not likes and comments. Of course, they're important, but reposting seems to be by far the most meaningful metric in those 2 algorithms, at least from what I'm seeing.
Well, it's good you're paying attention to it.
It's, I ran a digital publishing company years ago. We were very heavily in the YouTube space, but things have changed a lot. We're not in social media anymore. We're in influencer media. And I don't even think that's the right term. What's the term Gary Vee uses about you can have 1 million followers and you don't get that much reach, but you can have 10 followers and make the right piece of content and get 10 million views. Like it's interest media. It's interest media. If you create something novel and unique, like Akatumbu saw the Heritage Foundation one, that one blew up on Instagram. That's what interest media is. So it doesn't really matter how many followers you have. It's helpful. Don't get me wrong. It's still helpful, but it's becoming less critical. It's your ability to provide content that's unique and interesting on a regular basis. And that's freaking hard to do. That's hard to do. Like who knows what that means? You see people.
That's the hard part about like today's world, right? Like just how do you create, or how do you get enough people's attention and like break them out of their cycle to look at something that's not like a lot of people think about this stuff as very stressful or very there's a lot of conflict or argumentative, or they don't want to deal with it. They'd rather watch The Bachelor or The Bachelorette or something else that gets their mind off of it. And an influential individual would make this stuff interesting, right? But at the end of the day, I think too, it's like we need to be more interested in it, because either they're just going to keep doing whatever they have been doing forever without the outside influence, or the right influence, which is us.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately you got to be genuine. You got to figure out what you're good at, and that's not easy to do, to figure out what you're because whenever you go in front of a camera, you sort of change who you really are. It's actually hard to get your true self out in front of a camera. It's much easier to do here on a live, but it's much harder to do on just a camera. At least I think for most people, it certainly was for me. So Loki on IG, thanks for joining and thanks for watching. You just found me on IG tonight. That's awesome. And I'm going to come back to you. So Akatumbu, you saw me put up this new graphic. You can't see it on IG, but those of you on TikTok can see. We're going to talk about the Heritage Foundation just for a moment here. And 330, who dat girl? She says, well, the right person reposted 2 of my posts on Threads. I only had 200 or something followers and had well over 80,000 views. Last screenshot I took was 24,000 views. Thread shut my account down. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's always the big fear. That's why I'm trying to expand into more platforms, because you're always worried about your account being shut down. What was the topic? I want to know the topic. 330, who dat girl? What was your topic that got your account shut down? And Loki says, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it. El Kuki. There are some great historians on IG. Okay, awesome. All right, so Akatumbu on TikTok, you said the Heritage Foundation. So those of you that are on IG, you can't see this graphic that I posted up that has it on TikTok. I talked about the Heritage Foundation in a recent video. There is a internal implosion that's happening in the Heritage Foundation. So I'll make this clear for those of you on TikTok as well. I mean, on IG as well. There is essentially, the Heritage Foundation has always claimed to be a conservative think tank to promote Christian values. Let's just say that. Over the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. They were a very conservative think tank. And they believed that to promote those values, those conservative values, they were not anti-Semitic, and they believed in, for the most part, in the Constitution. They believed in just a more rigid religious version of conservatism, but they weren't necessarily, for lack of a better word, evil. I don't know if that's the best way to say that, but they just promoted family values and all the things that a lot of conservatives believe in. And not just conservatives, a lot of liberals believe in a lot of these types of conservative values as well. So what's happened, though, is this conservative group has been getting infiltrated by more and more extreme voices. Now, in addition to that, there's a second group that joined the Heritage Foundation years ago, not too many years ago, and that was the pro-Israel Zionists. And the Heritage Foundation had their own project instead of Project 2025, which we all have heard about Project 2025. And that's what obviously the Heritage Foundation and their extremer views have been promoting to sort of tear down our representative democracy and replace it with a theocracy, a religious state. That's what the new Heritage Foundation really believes in, if I'm paraphrasing properly. The pro-Israel Zionists in Project Esther, I don't know if I'm even pronouncing that right. You want to correct me on that. How do you pronounce Esther?
Esther?
Yeah, it's obviously a religious condemnation. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Esther. So anyway,
Esther.
yeah. Heritage Foundation had a new project called Project Esther, along with Project 2025. And that relationship between pro-Israel individuals and, I'm going to call them white nationalists, WC nationalists, that's essentially what they are now. There was a sort of a marriage between the pro-Israel group and the pro-WC nationalist. They basically combined to form a coalition, if you will. Now that coalition, you might say it's a weird coalition, and it is a little strange, but there was some reasonings behind it, and it was a moral reasoning. They want to claim it's a moral reasoning. Their position was they want to be anti-Semitic, meaning the WC nationalists want to be anti-Semitic. And so they took a moral high ground by being anti-Semitic and partnering with the pro-Israel group. Now, there's also a relationship between Judeo-Christianity, Jesus being from Jerusalem, being born in Jerusalem, and obviously Israel controlling Jerusalem. So the WC nationalists want to see Israel continue to control the Holy Land. And that's where the relationship is. So they take a moral high ground of being anti-Semitic. And what it really means, though, in simple terms, so everything I just said, think about it not as that, but think about it as both of these groups are really just anti-Palestinian, anti-Islamic, anti-Muslim. So this relationship is about more not how much they have in common, but it's about how much they want to be hateful. That's a terrible way of putting it, but be hateful to those groups, what they're against. They're against Islam and Muslims and Palestinians. That's where this relationship is. And that's why Heritage Foundation has Project 2025 and Project Esther in these two groups of pro-Israelis and WC nationalists. Now, what's happened recently is that Tucker Carlson, who's a WC nationalist and promotes WC nationalists and supremacists, had Nick Fuentes on his show a couple weeks ago. And Nick Fuentes is anti-Semitic. And he's very popular on some Gen Z, and he's anti-Semitic. And the pro-Israel group within the Heritage Foundation did not tolerate that. They were very angry about that platforming. They call it platforming, that Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on the show, and they wanted the president of the Heritage Foundation to apologize. And the president of the Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts, said no, and he doubled down and said, we support Tucker Carlson. So the whole team from Project Esther, the pro-Israeli group, quit. They lost some board members off of the Heritage Foundation, and they lost all their pro-Israeli donors. That's at least my understanding of what's happening internally. So there's a breakup between the pro-Israeli faction and the WC nationalists, which is only could be a good thing, right? I think that's a very good thing. It weakens the Heritage Foundation. Now, it doesn't mean the Heritage Foundation will completely implode. No one knows. I doubt it. They still have lots of donors from the perverted view of Christianity. So the WC nationalists and the white supremacists and the deep, extreme religious zealots in our country, they still have their support. So will they end up breaking up permanently? They might. Will they end up forming another coalition? Who knows? But obviously the WC Nationalists or the Heritage Foundation has been fully infiltrated by some very extreme. So I don't even like to use the word Christianity because they're not WC. They're not Christians. This is a perverted view. There's nothing. And I have people in my comments telling me all the time that these people are not good Christians and they don't have any Christian values, and they're right. So really what they are, I'd call them white supremacists, right? That's what they are. They have very little to do with Christianity and everything to do with hate. And that's what white supremacist is. And someone in the comments said here that Tucker is paid for by Russia. That's true. There's a lot of influence on Tucker's show, pro-Russian influence about Tucker. Tucker is, goes to the grocery store in Russia and says how great it is, and groceries are so cheap in Russia. What a great place. We should all move here.
And the subway's so beautiful. And it's
what a freaking turd. So yeah, Tucker is certainly a Russian asset, either willingly or unwillingly. Who knows? But there's obviously a very strong pro-Russian sentiment in a lot of people in this country, which just baffles me.
Tucker probably got a lot of hate when he was growing up with that name. You just turn that T to an F, and you're under fire.
It's incredible, these little creeps that are now in power that have so much influence. These little creepy, just imbeciles.
Diabolical.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just little spirits. They're little demons.
Yeah. Fired my doc. You love Russia. That's great. Akatumbu, I hope that made sense. You're welcome. Yeah, do some study on it. If you learn more about it and you come across any articles, send me a DM. I'm always looking to learn more about what's going on in the Heritage Foundation.
It always comes back to religion, though, doesn't it, TK? All the biggest conflicts and the same stuff that we're in now, it's the same thing that's been going on since the dawn of religion.
Race and religion.
It just, I mean, there's something else though that's not that, and it's
It's
logic
it's
and reason and
the human condition to want to be part of a tribe, to want to have like my people. I personally have never understood it. I've never been a part of any tribe. I don't get it. I don't get the tribal mentality. I get it in terms of wanting comfort. People want to have comfort in their tribe. And, you know, we've always been part of tribes, but in this day and age, like we have the ability to think beyond a tribe and think of our tribe as all people. Like the tribe is like, if we were ever attacked by aliens, you know what? We would all come together real quickly and realize, hey, we're all humans. Like, and then that's our tribe, right? So the tribe always has to be the smallest common denominator of what my tribe is, just like we're now part of the blue tribes and red tribes. Michelle says it's all about using the power of religion. That's true. Like you said, you have Putin in Russia that leverages religion to his benefit, and he's not religious, right? And Trump's not religious either. And he's also, like, he's not purposely leveraging it, but those religious groups are leveraging Trump.
it always, I mean, my thought process is it's just these individuals that are just master manipulators, and they're not even a part of these groups, but they just like to, like, if the human population was water, they like to create these waves of emotion based on like these different topics, and they use them to like move the people in a direction, regardless of whether it's beneficial to the overall collective's well-being. They just like to turn the dials to see what we're gonna do. Like, it's like these mad scientists is what I think of them as sometimes.
Well, there's always nefarious forces, sociopaths and psychopaths. Like I always say, there's always them out there, and people in very powerful positions in many religious organizations and political organizations tend to often be sociopaths or psychopaths or narcissists, right? Some form of those variations, and that's the scary part, because they don't. I don't know. They're just not content with living life in a decent life like a lot of normal people would like to be. So I have a question on Instagram. Are there things we can and can't say? Yeah, that's why I'm never sure when, especially across 3 platforms. If you say the wrong words, and that's why I don't even like to use the word. I use is instead of Israel. And whether it's derugs, you use derugs instead of, and of course, unaliving instead of Xing somebody. So there, you don't know what you can say or what you can't say. So you just try and, use. It's almost like a new language is being created online.
Isn't that so annoying?
It is.
It really, I mean, why can't we just talk the way we want to talk?
Yeah.
Maybe that's how you become authentic, instead of trying to appease the overlords.
Yeah, but that's you have the right for free speech, but you don't have the right to broadcast speech. And I actually agree with that. But the problem is when the terms of service and the terms aren't disclosed of what you can and can't say, and what is hate and what is not hate. Like you can say the words of certain countries, but you can't call out certain other religions. Like it's just, that's the problem. It's not that I agree that you shouldn't be able to broadcast all speech, but there has to be a regulation on what actually can be said and what can't be said. And that should be out there. But instead, we're always guessing, like, what can we say? I can say the F word, I think, 1,000 times in a row, and I don't think that gets you banned. But if I say the name of a certain country too many times, then the live gets shut down. So that tells you who those overlords might be.
Mother Tucker.
So 330, who that girl says, you'll lose your account. I lost my IG account last year when they gave it back and took down a lot of my posts. Yeah, but what were you talking about, El Quickie? What were you talking about?
You might not want to know, TK. You might not
Yeah,
want to
don't
know.
use code. Use code in the answer. All right. So Michelle, this is an interesting topic. Michelle says the original bankers in the 5 or 6 families. So she's probably talking about the obviously the Federal Reserve and the creature from Jekyll Island. Let a lot of people. There's a lot of conspiracies regarding the Federal Reserve and the Rothschild family and the other families associated with the Federal Reserve. It's not all untrue. It's a little bit. It's not all true. Let's call it that. It is,
Really?
what?
That's your stance?
It's not all true. I mean, yeah, you have
Oh.
a ruling class of people that created a financial system to get us off of the gold standard. There's no doubt that those people are very powerful. And I'm happy to have you, counter my points. There is a ruling class of people that created the Federal Reserve, and they still control an enormous amount of power in the economic system. There's no doubt about it. My contention is to say that, some people say they should abolish the Federal Reserve. No, don't abolish it, because the Federal Reserve also allowed capitalism to thrive beyond beliefs. Now, if you want to regulate or reduce some of their power, but I would much rather have the power, I say this reluctantly, in a group of capitalists that are trying to control the economy for the best interests of the entire economy and themselves, but they are capitalists. Instead of putting that power in the government's hands or any one party's hands or any one president's hands, because that is also fraught with incredible risk. When you allow a dictator, essentially, that's why Congress has control of the person, not the president, and the Federal Reserve having some controls on monetary policy, it's actually the right system, I think. It's just that you have too much influence by too few people. So again, it's a people problem. It's not a systemic system problem. That's how I view it. And I've watched all the YouTube videos on the creature from Jekyll Island and all that stuff. And there's it makes a lot of good sense. They were doing it for their own self-interests, but they were also
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was basically done.
When was the Federal Reserve implemented, or has it always been there?
Let's find out. 1920.
That was 29, wasn't it?
I think so. I think it was after that.
Oh.
We'll find out. It's been a while since I watched The Creature, Jekyll Island. Oh, yeah. Well, before then, 1913. Federal Reserve Act into law. President Woodrow Wilson, December 23rd, 1913.
I was just going to say Woodrow Wilson here earlier in the live. There's something about that man that creeps me out. I had many things in school when I was in public school. There was something about him that just threw me off, and I don't know what it is.
All right, so let's read this. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I didn't. It's been a long time since I read much about Woodrow Wilson. The Federal Reserve Act of 1913 was drafted and passed by Congress, then signed by Wilson. The system is structured as a public-private hybrid. So that's what I mean by, I think it's the right system, a public-private hybrid. It's sort of a social program, a little bit. It's a government-private partnership. So with private, if it's entirely private and it's not controlled at all or regulated by the public, it's just total exploitation. So the private part of it is exploitation of, unregulated capitalism. The public part of it is meant to have regulations. That's why there's a board of governors in the federal government agency. The regional Federal Reserve banks are technically corporations, private, but their shares cannot be sold or controlled the way private company stock can. So decades later, where the family idea came from. Decades later, conspiracy literature claimed that powerful banking families secretly controlled the Fed. The most common names cited are Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Warburgs, Morgans, Schiffs, Kuhns, and Loebs. However, these claims are not supported by historical record or by the governance structure of the Fed. The real people involved in writing the Federal Reserve Act was a small group of bankers and policymakers that helped draft early versions of the central banking proposal at the 1910 Jekyll Island meeting. That was Senator Nelson Aldrich, AP Paul Warburg, Henry Davidson, etc. So no families
Yeah,
own or control the
Warburgs.
Federal Reserve. Now, that doesn't mean there was no influence by certain wealthy ruling elite or wealthy families. I don't know if we'll ever know.
What would be their justification for doing that?
The passing of the bill?
You're going to like pure fiat.
Well, to leave the gold standard, right?
Why? But why did they do that? That I guess is my question. I forget.
Well, governments have operated, I don't know what governments operated before the United States, but the gold standard is very limiting when you have a supply limitation based on everything in gold. Is you can't, it's harder to lend, right? So you have a less of a loan system. And borrowing money is important for growth, as we've been proven since that time and even beforehand. So I don't know, I'm not incredibly
Sure.
studious here, but there's a lot of good reasons that fiat always do fail at some point, but fiat has also changed the world and made, there's less poverty around the world now than there ever has been. There's more money in the hands of people around the world than there ever has been. There's also more debt. So, I think there's obviously consequences, pros and cons to it, but having a limited supply of money proved to inhibit growth. I guess that's a way of thinking about it.
Understood. Did we ever get the confirmation that there was gold in Fort Knox? I forget.
That's so funny. They talked about it for a week, and then when they went, they didn't hear a word about it.
Are we supposed to think that's good news or bad news?
The news cycle changes fast. No one even asked the question, really, right? No, they went there, they saw their gold was there, and they're like, oh, okay, forget about it. We're wrong.
Was that their story? Is that it was all gone? Was that going to be their? I don't know.
I think they wanted to
I'm
prove
just-
that it was there, right? Or, maybe they wanted to go take a few bars. Who knows?
Maybe they already have, but we'll never know.
Right? Hey, when everyone questions us, we just give a few bars away and then everybody leaves us alone. No.
I always thought that was an interesting thing in history where the government asked everybody to hand over their gold. That point in our history,
Yeah.
I was like, that was kind of crazy to me. I was like, wow. They were like, give us all your gold, and people did that.
Michelle says, if all the world goes bankrupt, metals will be the only value to be traded. Well, who knows? America was bankrupt. All right. Well, it's late, everybody. I think it's time for us to all hit the pillow.
Happy Thanksgiving, TK.
Everybody, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for watching the live. Thanks for the follows. Thanks for the likes. Please repost. If you really want to bring representation back to the people, it can be done. I promise you it can be done. It's going to take a lot of people that want to enact the 28th and 29th Amendment. It's not impossible. So please spread the word. Please spread the videos. That's what everything does in the beginning. Some things sound crazy in the beginning, and then when you look back in history, you're like, oh, that was obvious. Like, duh. Like, this is incredibly obvious, people. Like, a 28th Amendment to eliminate money from politics, it's impossible. No, it's obvious. That's what needs to be done. Every one of us knows it. I don't get anyone that ever says in my comments, no, that's not going to work. They say, yeah, it can't happen. It'll never happen. I understand that point of view, but no one says, if we did it, it wouldn't work. Not a single person out of thousands and thousands of comments. Think about that. It's pretty insane, right?
I think that's actually sane. That's not insane. That's sane.
Right. That should be what's sane, but for some reason it seems insane. Like the most obvious, simple solution is usually the right one.
It's keep it simple, stupid.
Right. And that's what good politicians do. That's what good messengers do. Like just something sounds so crazy, but then we're like, oh, well, wait a minute. Why is that crazy? Oh, just because I've been told it's crazy 1,000 times, then I believe it's crazy, even though it's not crazy at all. And the same thing was with government is the problem, not the solution. I understand it. I understand why people are skeptical of government. I understand why they hate parts of government, but government is not the ultimate problem. Government is the solution. It just depends on, do you want a bad government? Because that is the problem. Or do you want a better government, a more responsible government, a more accountable government? That's probably the best way to say it. If you have a government that's accountable to the people, then you'll have a better government.
That's why I don't like the blue or the red, and I can't wait to divorce from both of them and just do a third party that's gonna just completely mow them over. They won't even see it coming
You know, there's
because
this
they both failed us.
there's this influencer on TikTok that she talks about, she hates the corporations, she hates the government, she hates like everything. She hates America, it seems like. She's knowledgeable about a lot of things, but she seems to hate everything. And there's never any solution. It's just like, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what do you want to do? You can't just hate
Where's the
everything.
solutions? Yeah.
It's like,
Is that what people do, TK? Do they sit in their house and they just commiserate and they bitch about everything and they don't come up with ideas to fix it?
I think so, right? I mean, hey, I'm guilty of it as well, of complaining at times about things, but
Sure.
you fix shit. I fix
I do
shit all the
fix shit.
time, right back here. I'm always fixing shit. I fixed the new engine the other day. Like, I don't like to just sit and look at a problem and say like, well, it's a big problem. I'm just going to complain about it. I'm going to stare at it and complain about it and just, oh, wait a minute. I got tools right behind me. I got YouTube videos. Shit, why don't I fix it?
It's not that hard.
Right.
It's not that hard.
And you know what? Then the rest of the family stops complaining and bitching about it. And like, oh, should have just fixed it sooner.
What happens when everything's fixed, TK? Then what are we going to complain
Oh
about?
my goodness, absolutely. There's always something to complain about, right? Yeah, I guess, misery loves company, right, everybody? So good night. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks everybody for joining. The last, you want to pick it tonight? You want some choices? Do you know the rundown enough to? So I'll give you the option. I'll tell you the options, but I think you know.
Okay.
You got the newsroom opening, which is always my favorite. You get Ted Lasso speech. You get the Steve Jobs speech about if you poke things can come out the other side. You have the American president, Joe Pesci in the Constitution, Saturday Night Live from recently about, I don't even know how to say that one. And then Sacha Baron Cohen, the dictator. Which one do you want?
SNL. I don't think I've heard that one yet.
Okay, SNL. So let me set it up for everybody. So the outro today is an SNL skit from just a few weeks ago. You'll hear the voice of the black character in this about complaining why he doesn't have any rights. Basically, they just keep ignoring him. So you'll hear that in case you can't put it together since you don't have the visual. And then the rest of it is satire in a skit from Saturday Night Live. I think this is, especially on YouTube, if you watch it, it's funny as heck. So have a great Thanksgiving, Mr. Global. Thanks as always. And if you haven't followed Mr. Global, I always forget to mention, please follow Mr. Global, those of you that are here. And let's make sure we do a 28th and 29th Amendment. And good night, everybody. Have a good Thanksgiving. Saturday Night Live. Here we go.
I hear the British are sending another 5,000 troops.
How will we ever win this war?
By remembering what we fight for.
General Washington.
Sit, please. We need your strength for the fight ahead. We fight for a country of our own, a new nation, where we choose our own laws.
Here, here. Said, sir.
choose our own leaders,
Yes, sir.
and choose our own systems of weights and measures.
Weights and measures, sir?
Yes. Yes, I dream of that one day. Our proud nation will measure weights in pounds, and that 2,000 pounds shall be called a ton.
And what will 1,000 pounds be called, sir?
Nothing. Because we will have no word for that.
Seems like we should have a word for 1,000 pounds, sir.
And yet we won't. Because we are free men. And we will be free to measure liquids in liters and milliliters. But not all liquids, only soda, wine, and alcohol.
Only those, sir.
Yes. Because for milk and paint, we will use gallons, pints, and quarts, God willing.
Okay. How many liters are in a gallon, sir?
Nobody knows.
And, sir, in this new country, what plans are there for men of color such as I?
Distance will be measured in inches, feet, yard, and mile. So 12 inches to a foot?
12 feet to a yard.
If it were only so simple. 3 feet to a yard.
And how many yards to a mile?
Nobody knows.
Okay, well, how many feet to a mile?
5,280, of course. It's a simple number that everyone will remember.
I must confess, it feels a little complicated, sir. Why not use meters and kilometers?
We will, soldier. But only in certain unpopular sports like track and swimming. For popular sports like football, we will use yards.
Football, sir?
Yes. It's a sport where you throw a ball with your hands.
So in football, there is no kicking?
There's a little kicking. You kick the ball to get points.
How many points, sir?
Sometimes 1 and sometimes 3.
Very confused, sir.
Do not worry. For our new nation, we will have rulers with 2 sets of numbers. Inches on one side, centimeters on the other.
So we can see where they line up.
Yes, except that they don't line up and they never will.
So cute, isn't
Liberty,
it?
son, liberty.
And the slaves, sir, what of them?
You asked about the temperature.
I did not.
We shall have 2 different unrelated scales of temperature. One of them will make sense to the entire world, and the other will be super random. Our great nation will use the random one.
What is the scale called, sir?
Fahrenheit.
Spell that for me.
Impossible. But one day, if we are brave, we will get rid of the U and a lot of British words like color and armor. But by God, we will keep the British U in the word glamour.
Only glamour, sir?
Only glamour. That is my dream for our countrymen. A melting pot of different measurements that will make Europeans throw little tantrums. In short, a land of liberty.
Where all men are free. Where all men are free, right?
That was cute, wasn't it? All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving tomorrow. And please check out my video on Friday that I'm going to be posting about the magic formula and actually something different that we didn't talk about tonight. So everybody have a great night. And I'll see you in the next live. And hopefully, thanks, Big Tom Carter 25. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. And Donnie Belcher, would we end up back where we are? No, we would not, Donnie. If we had a reset and we banned big money from politics and all the corruption and all the greed, we would not be back where we are as long as we have the right protections on the 28th Amendment. So that's it for tonight. See you guys soon. Good night, everybody.